Hey, this is Charles. I just wanted to talk about the movie Maxxxine from Ty West's trilogy, X, Pearl, and this, of course, is the third installment. And this is a spoiler heavy topic. So please don't even listen to this if you haven't seen the movie. It's a highly enjoyable film. I would highly recommend watching all three of them. But I just need to discuss the ending of this film because watching other people react to the movie, I feel like they interpret the ending way differently than I interpret the ending. So I would like to explain what I think happens. Frankly, without beating around the bush, I believe Maxine is dead. I think she dies right at the Hollywood sign. And everything we see after that is kind of her imagination, her afterlife, something along those lines. So let me explain why. So she's at the Hollywood sign at the big climax. She's pointing her shotgun at the bad guy, and a police helicopter, flies above her, puts a spotlight on her, and tells her to drop the weapon and that she's surrounded. She Of course, she imagines for a moment what it would be like to be a successful actress in Hollywood, interviewed on the red carpet, etc., etc. Then she comes back to reality with the police, with the shotgun, and she ends up shooting the bad guy. Now, it cuts to 1 month later, and she's on the set of The Puritan 2, and she's doing cocaine and she's got rolled up $100 bills. So she's successful a month later. So successful, she's using $100 bills to as a tool for her drug habit. Um, she talks to the director, and the director has a moment of silence for the star of the previous film, the first Puritan film, Molly. After the moment of silence, the director, Elizabeth Bender, comes up to Maxine and says to her, Molly was never going to be a big star, not like you, Maxine. Which seems like a pretty cold thing for her to say. I mean, she liked Molly. In fact, she invited Molly back to for a flashback sequence. The director did for the Puritan 2. And yet, all of a sudden, after a month after Molly is murdered, and they have a moment of silence for her. Now she sort of trashes Molly and says she would never be the star that you are, Maxine. That sounds to me like that's in Maxine's head, right? That's something Maxine would imagine more than it's something the director, Elizabeth Bender, would say. And then there's another clue. Um, the director tells Maxine that they're getting ready for or prepping the final dream sequence of the Puritan film. Well, that's like spelling it out for us. Hey, speaking of final dream sequences, this might actually be the final dream sequence of Maxine, right? I mean, I feel like that's a major clue right there. And then she asks Maxine a question. She says, Now, Maxine, now that everybody knows your name, what's next for you? Again, none of this quite feels like a normal thing that the director, Elizabeth Bender, would say. But regardless, that's what she said. What's next for you, Maxine? And Maxine says, with almost kind of a sad look on her face, she says, I just don't want this to ever end. Well, that right there, that actually kind of almost gave me goosebumps because I feel like that's a dream, that she's in a dream sequence now. She's in like maybe an eternal dream sequence. She does not want this moment where she feels like a star to end. Then the credits roll. We hear Betty Davis eyes, and then the camera moves away from the studio and into the hills. And instead of the Hollywood sign, we see Maxxxine as the sign on the hill. And of course, that could just be a kind of a clever way to end the film with a title sequence for Maxxxine. Or it could still be Maxine's imagination. Instead of the Hollywood sign, it's her name. Everybody knows her name now. This is something she's always wanted. And now her name is on the hill instead of Hollywood. But we're not finished because the camera keeps going and it moves up higher and higher and higher into the clouds. Literally, we are now in the clouds. I believe what happened was, going back to the Hollywood sign, she's pointing the shotgun at the bad guy. The police are saying she's surrounded. So it's not just the helicopter. It's she must have other police officers close by and they've got their weapons drawn because she is pointing her weapon, her shotgun, at the bad guy. They are literally telling her, drop the weapon. She not only does not drop the weapon, she fires. They must have, I mean, there's consequences to that. They must have fired on her. And I think it's ironic. She actually has a spotlight on her from the helicopter. So I feel like this is her last true performance. The spotlight is on her, literally. And her final performance is, of course, murdering the villain. And of course, big spoiler, this whole thing has been spoilers, but it's her father. So it's it's a tragic ending, really, I believe, for Maxine, but also kind of still a happy ending because she's now, if you're to believe the film and if you're to believe this theory, she's now living in paradise because she's getting exactly what she's always wanted. Now, most folks, they just take the ending literally, like it really is a happy ending and she's a big star and good for her. And they're really happy about that. And the thing, I think Ty West, the director, I think he really makes it ambiguous enough that if that's the way you want the movie to end, then more power to you. That's the way the movie ends. But I think he throws in all these clues to indicate that she probably didn't make it after she pulled the trigger. But anyway, that's my theory as to the ending of Maxine. I wonder if anybody actually agrees with me on this one because I haven't really heard anybody else suggest this, but it sure seems obvious to me. Hey, thanks for indulging me.